Well, welcome everyone.
Good
Good
morning.
morning.
Good morning and welcome to Norcal APEX Accelerator's webinar, Positioning Your Business for Government Contracting Success. My name is Amanda Anderson. I'm the program coordinator for Norcal APEX Accelerator, and today I'm joined by our fantastic procurement specialist, Dr. Indiria Giuseppe. But before I pass it off to her for the main bulk of this presentation, I do want to let you know a little bit about Apex Accelerators and how we can help you no matter where you are in the US. So, the Apex Accelerator program is a federally funded nationwide program that was developed to help you, whether you're a small business, a large business, or a new business. We're designed to help you get into government contracting. And we do that through education and training at all of our 96 centers across the US. And the best part, because we are funded by federal, state, and local grants, we're able to offer all of our resources, all of our training, all of our counseling to you at absolutely no cost. We'll never ask you for any sort of payment information or anything of that nature. But what exactly does assistance from an Apex Accelerator really look like? Well, at NorCal APEX Accelerator, we're able to offer our government contracting assistance to the 15 Northern California counties that you see on your screen. And we offer that assistance through three main pillars. First, our one-on-one counseling, where once you have applied for and are onboarded as a client with us, you can meet with one of our fantastic procurement specialists, like Indiria, and they can sit down with you one-on-one over Zoom or in person at our Cal Poly Humboldt office, and they can help you with anything related to government contracting, from getting your first certifications and registrations squared away to helping you find agencies that you want to target with your products and services through that market research. And we can even help with you staying compliant with all of the paperwork and the back end stuff once you win your first contract. We really are cradle to grave government contracting assistance. Another great feature of becoming a client is our custom bid matching program. This is a software that we pay for and are able to offer to our clients at absolutely no cost. And what it does is it allows you to sit down with your procurement specialist, define criteria in what you're looking for in solicitations. Maybe you can only perform your services in a geographic location. Or maybe your product is so new and innovative that the product name itself would be the criteria you're looking for. No matter what it is, we can help you set down criteria, which allows our software to scrape federal, local, and state procurement websites for open solicitations that meet that criteria. And then it emails it directly to you. Imagine getting solicitations that are relevant to you and your business directly to your email. It can take a lot of the tediousness out of finding those opportunities, especially at a local level. And finally, our third pillar of service are resources and training, which you're actually taking advantage of right now. We put on webinars and in-person events throughout the year covering a wide range of topics from introductory level things like first certifications and registrations to anything from mentor protege with DoD or the SBA. We cover a ton of topics throughout our training calendar for the year, but we also maintain a robust website of links and resources that you can explore all on your own. And that's why this one is my personal favorite because it's available to absolutely anybody. No matter if you're from Atlanta, Georgia, or even from Hawaii, you can always join our webinars and they will always be free to you. And you can always explore our website and use those resources. So if you haven't connected with your
The
local
local
APEX,
APEX.
or if you haven't connected with our website or our trainings, please do so at the links that you see on the site. And before I pass it off, I'll go ahead and read a bit of a training disclosure because this is recorded. The information provided herein is accurate to the best of the presenter's ability at the time of this presentation. Some or all of the provisions mentioned herein could or may be changed by the current administration, with or without prior notice. So with that, I'll go ahead and pass it off to Indiria.
Thank you, Amanda, and welcome everyone to Positioning Your Business for Government Contracting Success. My name is Dr. Indiria Gillespie. I know that's a mouthful. So today, the workshop objectives are: the objective is to position your business to be successful in the government contracting marketplace. Accomplish this by discussing registering your business with government entities, obtaining government certifications, and how to leverage registrations and certifications to better position and market your business for government contracting opportunities. Next slide, please. So why should you register your business? It is the first step in positioning your business for government contracting. And the reason why is because it gives you access to government contracting opportunities. And you do not miss government contracting opportunities because they are all emailed to you based on your NAICS codes or UNSPSC codes. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later. It's time efficient because you're not out seeking these government contracting opportunities at each individual website. It gives you credibility. And in reference to SAM, which is the System for Award Management on the federal side, it gives you access to resources and support, and it increases your business's visibility. Next slide, please. Why get certified? It positions your business for success. Also, it allows your business to obtain different preferences based on which certification that you're obtaining. Also, it levels the playing field. And the whole idea of that is to make the competition a little easier for small businesses to compete in the arena with large businesses. It helps you to attempt to keep state dollars. Oh, I'm sorry. It helps the state of California to keep its state dollars in the state. And of course, because it's the residents in California that pay the state taxes that give California the revenue. So, of course, they want to try to spend that money within the state of California, providing economic development to its own small businesses. It allows the federal, state, and local governments to meet its spending goals, and we'll talk about that later as well. And it gives you opportunities to work with the primes based on those spending goals. And again, we'll talk about that later also. Next slide, please. State of California registration and certifications. Why do business with the state of California? Well, we have some major reasons in California. So one of them is the state of California is the 5th largest economy in the world. That means the California economy is larger than many countries. And with that being said, the state of California has goals with small businesses. And their goal is to spend 25% of its overall annual procurement dollars on small businesses. So imagine, and that's certified small businesses. So imagine 25% of a large pot that is the 5th largest economy in the world. So that's a lot of money and a lot of opportunity for small businesses. Also, their goal is to spend 3% of their overall annual procurement dollars with certified disabled veteran business enterprises. And we'll talk a little bit about what is the eligibility requirements and how to obtain those certifications. Next slide, please. Why do business with the state of California? So in the last fiscal year, 2023 to 2024, which just ended on June 30th of this year, the state of California spent, you see that amount there in that big red circle? Who can say that? That's 55 billion 471,101,353.97. That is a mouthful. And all of that is the procurement dollars during that one particular year. So you can do the math. What is 25% of that? That the goal for the state of California was to spend with small businesses. And then you could do the math with the 3% as well. That's still a large number. So it's a great opportunity to do business here. Next slide, please. So let's talk about how to register your business with California. So there really aren't many eligibility requirements other than your business needs to be domiciled in the state of California, as well as the major partners of the company, being the CEO, the owner, depending on how the business is structured, that the CEO, if it's incorporated, sole proprietor, being the owner, and things of that nature. You must be domiciled in the state of California. And so to get registered, just go to the website caleprocure.ca.gov and select that little box you see there. We have a picture. How do I sell to the state? You click there to register. Some of the benefits of registering with the state of California: you will receive email notifications of solicitations based on your UN SPSC codes. And some of you might think, well, what are those? That's just the opposite of the NAICS codes in which the federal government utilizes. So the other benefit is not only will you receive email notifications, but sometimes in the case where the state does not get enough people to submit their proposals for solicitations, or in an area in which there aren't a lot of vendors, they may simply reach out to your business and invite you to submit a proposal for a particular opportunity. Also, you can post prime and subcontracting ads. So if you see a solicitation that you think your business would benefit from, however, you only can do, let's say, 50% of what's in the scope of work, you might want to go and place an ad and say, I'm a prime looking for a subcontractor to cover the other areas in which your business cannot cover. Or you could say, I'm a subcontractor looking for a prime to cover those other areas. And another benefit is view your purchase order information. So you can go online and just look at your purchase order for your business. And you can also track you can also track the progress of your payments. And we're going to talk about that a little bit later too, as far as prompt payment programs and things of that nature. Next slide, please. So in continuation with registering your business, you're going to go to caleprocure.ca.gov. That's a very important website because you're going to do a lot of things on that website. So make sure you write that down. So once you get there, you're going to click the Login Register button. Then you're going to click New Bidder Registration button, and then simply complete the 5-step process. It is very, very simple and very easy. I like to say that the state of California registration process is the easiest registration process of any that I have ever seen. Next slide, please. Here are some of the documents that you will need in order to register your business on Cal eProcure. You will need your legal business name, your tax identification number, or you can utilize your social security number. And of course, you will need your contact information. Next slide, please. The state of California certifications. So the state of California offers the small business certification, micro business certification, or for the purposes of public works, the small business public works certification. Now, keep in mind, the small business, the SB certification, when you complete that, The state will automatically determine by your application answers whether or not you're SB or a micro business. So micro business does not have its own application process. Public works, of course, is for people that want to do construction work in the sense of public works for the state of California on the roads and things like that. So how do you define a micro business and how does that differentiate from small business? So the micro business, the annual earnings is $6 million or less, which is very similar to small business because you can't earn over $18 million in aggregate of 3 years. If you break it down for the 3 years, that comes out to $6 million each year. So for disabled veteran business enterprise, that is specific for disabled veterans that are domiciled in the state of California as well. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more. Next slide, please. So what are the eligibility requirements for the small business? So I kind of hinted about some of that as far as the earning power. So let's talk about the requirements first. You must be independently owned and operated. And the reason for that is the state of California does not want a larger company to own, let's say a large company. I don't want to say any branding, business names or anything like that, but say a Fortune 500 company owns your small business. Well, then that doesn't technically make you independently owned and operated. And it may appear that that Fortune 500 company that's not a small business will be taking advantage of obtaining those small business benefits. So that's why they want you to be independently owned and operated to keep that same level playing field for all small businesses in California. You cannot be dominant in your field of operation. Your principal office must be located in California. So that does not mean you can't be located in other states. It just simply means that the main office must be here. Your owners, officers, members, managers, and or partners must also be domiciled in the state of California. Now let's talk about the limitations on the financial side. So the eligibility requirements. So the maximum employee count is 100 for small businesses. So you can have 100 or less employees. And then on the other side, for small businesses that's in public works, you can have up to 200 employees. Now, the financial side, your average gross annual receipts cap out. This is over the course of 3 years, and this includes any of your affiliates. So for small businesses, like I mentioned before, it's $18 million, and you could still be considered a small business. And on the public works end, it's $43 million. Next slide, please. So what are some of the benefits of the certification? So remember we were talking about the spending goals that the state of California has? Well, for the small business, their spending goal is to spend 25% of all of its overall annual procurement dollars. And I mentioned that before. However, another goal is they are going to give a 5% preference to small businesses. And that's wonderful because let's say that just two of us are bidding on a particular contract, me and yourself. I'm not a small business or not certified as a small business, and you are. And we both bid the same amount, let's say $100,000. Your business is going to win because you have a 5% preference. So your bid is going to appear as $95,000. However, you're still going to get paid the $100,000. So that's how the preference works. Also, another benefit is you gain access to contracting opportunities that are set aside exclusively to certified small businesses. Also, you get grandfathered in into the prompt payment program, which is wonderful because I remember when I first started in government contracting that was a different application process. So now you're automatically put into there. So what is the prompt payment program? Well, the prompt payment program is net 45. Years ago, it was net 30. but now it's net 45. But what that mean is once your business submit an accurate invoice, that's very important because if it's not accurate, you're not going to get paid in those 45 days until you submit an accurate invoice. So once they receive that accurate invoice, you can start counting the 45 days. That includes weekends because it's calendar days that include holidays as well. Also, another huge benefit is the reciprocity partners that they have. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more later as well. And what that means is there are other agencies outside of the state of California. Now, when I say outside of the state of California, I mean as far as doing business with the state of California, but they're still domiciled here in California. So it could be cities and counties and things of that nature, but they also acknowledge the small business certification, although it is a state certification, which means they also pledge to spend 25% of its procurement dollars on small businesses and 3% with a DVBE program. So that's an extended benefit. Also, primes get the benefits of your certifications. So, how does that work? So, in order for the state of California to reach its goal, let's say with small businesses to 25%, they have to pass along that goal to the primes. So let's pretend as a prime, again, you're bidding $100,000 on something, but you're not a small business. So in order for the state to meet its goal, they pass that requirement on to you, which means you must have a subcontractor that's within your proposal that's doing $25,000 or more of the work. So that way you're meeting the 25% as well. Therefore, the state is also. So you also, the final benefit is you have access to what we refer to as the small business and DVBE advocates. There is an advocate that represents every agency in the state of California that spends at least $100,000 per year in vendors and contracting purposes. So, therefore, you can reach out to them and access their knowledge and ask questions. And again, we're going to talk about those advocates again on how you can leverage your certification to position your business for government contracting. Next slide, please. So the other certification is the DVBE eligibility requirements. So what is one, let me get rid of that. I'm sorry, the eligibility requirement. A disabled veteran is a veteran of the U.S. military, naval, or Air Force. The veteran must have service-connected disability of at least 10% or more. It's very important that it's service-connected. The veteran must be domiciled in the state of California. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of this certification? Again, the state of California has spending goals in this area as well. And the spending goal for the DVBE is 3%. That sounds like a smaller amount coming from the small business being 25%, but more than likely as a DVBE, you will have that small business certification as well. You're also eligible for that same 5% incentive for DVBEs on applicable state solicitations. You can access contracting opportunities that's exclusive to certified DVBE businesses. You can leverage the benefits, including the prompt payment program. So DVBEs also receive that as well. You can leverage your certification with other California government entities, being the reciprocity partners. And prime contractors get the benefits again of utilizing your certified business to meet the state's goals of spending with DVBE businesses. Next slide, please. So how do you apply? So here are some of the documents that you would need. You would need to complete federal, state tax returns. I'm sorry, federal tax returns for applicant firm and its affiliates. You must have an IRS TIN number, quarterly contribution return and report of wages, Form DE-9C, proof of service-connected disability, and usually that's a letter from the VA. Other documents depending on a company's structure. Next slide, please. Again, how to apply for the SB and DVBE certification. Remember that website, caleprocure.ca.gov. Go there, click Get Certified, search for SB DVBE. Then after you click there, it's kind of a third of the way down the page. Click Get Certified, apply or reapply. You may apply for both the small business and the DVBE with one application. Next slide, please. So let's discuss other California certifications. The California Public Utilities Commission. It's a program that monitors supplier diversity and procurement by utilities and covered entities, as well as oversees a clearinghouse of women, minority, lesbian, gay, bisexual, and transgender, disabled veteran, and persons with disabilities business enterprises. The CPUC's Supplier Clearinghouse verifies the eligibility of the businesses. Next slide, please. So, what are some of those certifications? There's the Women Business Enterprise, known as WBE, the Minority Business Enterprise, MBE, Lesbian, Gay, Bisexual, Transgender Business Enterprise, LGBTBE, Disadvantaged Business Enterprise, DBE. Next slide, please. So what are the eligibility requirements? So you must, if you're applying for the WBE, of course, you must be a woman. And you must be at least 51% owner of the business. The minority business enterprise, you must fall under the category of minority defined by the state of California. And you can go to caliprocure.ca.gov to see what are those requirements as far as minority. And again, you must be 51% owned by a minority as well as far as the company. LGBT also, you must be 51% owner of the business and domiciled within the state of California. And that's the case with all of these. And then there's the disadvantaged. So I put a little asterisk there because their system is a little bit different as far as how to obtain and apply for that particular certification. So I'm going to talk about that one separately from the others. You must be a U.S. citizen or a legal alien, and again, hold majority ownership. And this one is very important. You must control the day-to-day operations of the company. So you can't just simply own the company and live on the beach in Fiji while someone else is running the business. So it's very important that you're making the decisions and you are also operating the business. So what are some of the benefits? Under General Order 156, provides voluntary procurement goals of 15% for MBEs, 5% for WBEs, and 1.5% for LGBTBEs. So why the difference? Well, because oftentimes if you have the MBE certification, you also might qualify for the Women Business Enterprise. So the Women Business Enterprise can also have the MBE. So that's why there's a little difference. And that applies also with the LGBTBE certification as well. Next slide, please. How to apply for CPCU certifications. So remember that clearinghouse, the one that vet out the companies and verify that you're really that type of business and qualify for these certifications. Well, they are currently moving to a new online certification application system on January 1st, 2025. So their application system is going to change in a matter of just a couple of weeks. However, you could also apply through the three that's listed here. However, there is a price associated with that. So just keep that in mind, or you can wait until after January and apply through the supplier clearinghouse. So those other entities are the National Minority Supplier Development Council, Women's Business Enterprise National Council, and the National Gay and Lesbian Chamber of Commerce. Now, all of them may not charge the same amount, and some of them may be give you a sponsorship as well. Next certification, sorry, next slide, please, which happens to be the next certification. So this one is under the header of Caltrans. They utilize the DBE most often. This is disadvantaged business enterprise. So let's talk about that. Let's go to the next slide. So the eligibility requirements are you must be a social and economically disadvantaged business. To check to find out what does that mean, just Google FAR CFR Part 26.67. However, it changes quite often, but it usually stays steady with the definitions for women, African American, Hispanic American, um, Asian Pacific American, Native American, subcontinent Asian American, and other minorities. So if you didn't hear where you may fall in under this category, check out the FAR. The person must, their net worth must be less than $2,047,000. You must possess the power to manage the day-to-day operations and long-term decisions. Small business, you must be a small business per the SBA standards. So the SBA has a small business standards tool, and you could Google that. It's difficult to just tell you a fixed number of what a small business is with the SBA because it also depends on the industry. So like, for instance, manufacturing is allowed to earn much more money and still and have many more employees than, let's say, an accountant. So just Google small business standards and you will locate, find out what how much money your business could earn. What are those limitations? So special licensing for disabled. And those special licensing, for instance, depending on the industry, if there is a special license that prohibits a disabled person from obtaining them because of their disability, they're not able to qualify, then a person within the company can obtain that license and that company will still qualify for the DBE certification. So what are the benefits? Expanded market access, prime contractor visibility, because again, they have spending goals, networking opportunities, certification acts as a marketing tool, increased business potential, recognition by local agencies, financial assistance, and bonding support. And as you know, in construction, that is very important. Next slide, please. How to apply for the DBE certification. So just simply go to caltrans.dbesystem.com, develop an account, and then click Apply for Certification. Next slide, please. Questions?
All right,
All
and we're
right, and
to
we're
our
to
first section of questions. So we're going to be covering California certifications, registrations, as well as the other certifications that we covered, the CPUC, I believe is the correct acronym, and the DBE. We do have quite a number of questions, some really, really good ones. So first off, about the small business and micro business for California certifications. Is there any distinct advantage to being a micro business over being a small business?
No, there isn't. They have the same eligibility requirements as well as benefits.
And do the reciprocity partners also recognize that micro business in the same way they would a small business? Can you still get those benefits with those partners?
Yes, you do.
Awesome. And then Terry dropped a question in chat, but it is a very, very good question. And please make sure that you are entering your questions into the Q&A section. It's a lot easier to track and make sure that we get you your answers. Terry was wondering, how do they apply for the MBE and WBE after the new year at no charge? They're really looking to get these certifications at no charge.
So after the new year, the clearinghouse would have developed their application process because they're changing it and it's going to go live after the new year. And then anything with the clearinghouse is free of charge. So just wait a couple of weeks and then apply through that system.
Absolutely. And we did get a couple other questions about the supplier clearinghouse and getting those certifications. And it sounds like we don't have a ton of information about the new system that they're going to be putting in place to get you those certifications at no cost. Is that correct?
That is correct. I'm
I will
thinking
note, I will note, however, we will be revising this presentation in March. So we should have more information about that. And that's part of why we do that little disclosure at the beginning of all our recordings, because especially with certifications, things can change very drastically and often do. So keep an eye out for our March event, and you can get updated information on those certifications during that presentation. Let's see, we got a number of questions. I appreciate your patience as I sift through them. Um, Answered that one. Okay, so there are a couple of questions that I'm going to synthesize because they're all kind of trying to get at the same point. And a lot of it is to do with the confusion of where to go for which certification. So I have folks asking if they can certify as a WBE that counts for WOSB. And so I'm wondering, Indiria, if you could just define in very categorical terms what certifications count for what agencies or businesses and where they can go to get those.
so. The WBE is a CPUC certification, which is the state of California. The WOSB certification, which is Women Owned Small Business Certification, that's a federal certification. So one is state, one is federal. So you can't measure them together because one will help you and assist you with getting government contracts on the state side, whereas another will give you benefits on the federal side.
Fantastic. And those are two separate applications. Um,
Yes.
Fantastic. And let's see. So we answered those. And then I had a question that is very good to clarify. At any point in time, would they be paying to get certified with the state or with CPUC aside from the whole system update? Or are all these certifications offered for free to the businesses?
Those certifications are free.
Yes. I believe most, if not all, government contracting certifications at the state, the CPUC, and the federal level are typically free to register for, correct?
Yes, they are. However, you will find companies that will offer their services to do it for you for a wide range of money. I've seen some that could buy a used car, a decent used car for a certification. But that is why we have the Apex Accelerator here to help you with that. So I'm glad you are here and you are becoming aware of the services that we provide so that you don't fall into those money traps.
Fantastic. And then I am sifting through. Someone was wondering about California state certifications. Does your spouse have to be a California resident as well to get the WBE or small business certifications?
So if the spouse is female for the WBE certification, then of course they have to be domiciled in the state of California. If the spouse is not the person that is qualifying you for the WBE, then it doesn't matter where the spouse resides.
Fantastic. And there was a clarifying question for one of the ones we asked. Alicia was asking about if one certification would qualify for another and how those kind of interplay. She was wondering, will the state certifications allow any sort of qualifications for federal certification?
Unfortunately, one has nothing to do with the other. And that would make it very difficult for the federal government to manage. Imagine how many certifications there are when you add all 50 states and DC. That would be very difficult. So that's why they're separate. The certifications for the state is for state solicitations and state funding. Whereas the federal certifications are for federal solicitations and federal fundings. The only time that you see that crossover is with Caltrans because Caltrans is responsible for the interstate. So the interstate is heavily federally funded. However, the particular interstate may be in the state of California, even though it's federally funded, the DBE certification then kind of crosses over with the state and federal funding in that instance. But that's the only instance.
Perfect. That's great clarification because even after all the webinars that I sit in on, I can absolutely see how confusing it can be because they're kind of certifying for the same thing, but through a different agency and through different qualifications. So it's hard to see that separation all the time.
Yes, and that's why we have this class because you need to register with the appropriate organizations and agencies, as well as obtain the correct certifications that your business qualify for to help you meet your goals. So that's why you're here to position your business for success.
Fantastic. And we do have a couple other questions, but for time's sake, I do want to make sure we keep us moving forward. We will have another section covering federal certifications as well as a Q&A after that. And then we'll go into some other things and do a final Q&A wrap up where we can answer all the questions that we have. So with that, we'll go ahead and move on to federal certifications.
Awesome. So now let's tackle that. So, why do business with the federal government? The federal government is the world's largest buyer. So if they're spending money, that's a great place to try to do business. So they also have spending goals, just like we discussed with the state, but their spending goals are with their certification. So keep that in mind. So, like with the small disadvantaged business or 8A, their goal is to spend 5% in that area. The WOSB, and someone's question inquired about this one. This is the woman owned small business. They're spending 5% in this area. And then there's the Hub Zone, which is a program. They're spending 3% there. And this one is a mouthful. So this is service disabled, veteran owned small business, and they're spending 5% in this arena. Now, this also include the VOSB, which is not service disabled, but veteran owned small business certification. Next slide, please. Another reason to do business with the state of, I'm still on the state, with the federal government is look at how much money they spent in the recent years. So I put up here the last two fiscal years. And you see they have small business set-asides. So first of all, what are set-asides? So if you are a certified SDB business, then they have the federal government will set aside a certain number of solicitations for certain dollars amounts for you to compete only with other SDBs. And they spent the federal government in 2022 to 2023 fiscal year $59 billion. And then this is the only case where the number went down. As you see, from year to year, the number goes up with each year, except for there's two areas. So it went down to $29 billion. And then with the VOSB set aside, it was 59 million and went down to 29 million. And then there's the SDVOSB set asides where it went up 7.7 billion to $8.7 billion. So it went up a whole $1 billion. The WOSB 823.4 million, and it went up to a whole billion in this case. And the EDWOSB went from 27.1 to 39.7 million. And then you see the hub zone went up slightly also from 969 million to $1 billion. So that is a lot of spending. So it behooves you to get the certifications and join or be a part of the programs that your business qualifies for. Next slide, please. So, System for Award Management, SAM. So, if you're trying to get into federal contracting, you're going to hear about SAM quite a bit. So, SAM is a free official US government website that allows you to register your business to do business with the US government. So, whenever you hear about registering your business when it comes to government solicitation, that is when you register your business to receive notifications of opportunities. And then they also offer other things, but consistently, it is for you to get those notifications. Also, with SAM, you can obtain a unique entity identifier. That's a UEI number. So in the past, it used to be the DUNS number, and they changed this around 2022, I believe, where they changed it to the UEI. And so basically what that says is they want to make sure that your business entity is unique. It is the only business, and they can identify your business so that when you do obtain a government contract, that they are doing business with your business. They're not confusing you with another business with the same name. And it does happen. So that's why you obtain that not that certification, but that's why you obtain a UEI identifier. You must do that prior to registering with SAM. Also, you can search for contracting opportunities on sam.gov. You can self-certify as a small disadvantaged business, the SDB. Now, this is the easiest certification you can obtain because as you're registering with SAM, just before the registration concludes, it asks you if you are a small disadvantaged business. If you say yes, you're automatically certified. So that's very simple and easy. So it's populated after completing the business profile. Obtain a commercial and government entity CAGE code. So that's a mouthful. That's what CAGE stands for. And you can obtain that also during the SAM completion process. So as soon as you complete the SAM, then they generate a CAGE code for you. So there isn't a separate application process or anything like that. So SAM gives you a lot of goodies that you can obtain when you're getting your registration. You get that SDBE certification as well as obtain a CAGE code. Next slide, please. Registering your business on SAM. So what is the eligibility requirements? Any entity that intends to bid on or receive federal contracts or funding, including for-profit business, nonprofits, government contractors, state and local governments, and subcontractors. So, what are the benefits? Well, for one, it's free to register with SAM. You can search for contracting opportunities. You can self certify as an SDB. You can get listed on the Dynamic Small Business Search database. So, this is something that the federal government uses when they're trying to find a company to do business with in a particular area. And they go into the Dynamic Small Business Search database. So that lets them know that you're registered with SAM, and they also know that some of the basics about your business, your NAICS codes, and things of that nature. You can obtain that commercial and government entity, the CAGE code, which is a part of the Department of Defense Logistics Agency. So that's specific for them. Next slide, please. In continuation, you must register in SAM if you want to obtain federal certifications. So you cannot go and apply for the WOSB or any of the federal certifications that we listed in the prior slides until you register with SAM. First, before you register with SAM, again, you must obtain that unique entity identifier. And that's relatively easy unless your business exact name exists somewhere else in the United States. And then you have to reach out to the UEI agency, the company, and give them a call. Sometimes it's a Zoom call. This happened with me when I was getting my UEI because there was another business with my name in Atlanta. So it does, and it may take another day or two to obtain it if there is another company with your name. Next slide, please. System for award management, obtaining that UEI. So just go to sam.gov, click Get Started, and you see that picture on the right here. And you will find this on the home page to the right, and it's about a third of the way down, not even a third, a quarter of the way down on the website. You set up your sam.gov account, sign in to login.gov, complete the SAM profile, select the entity in the list. The entity is when you put in your name, they're going to have your company name. Hopefully, your company name will appear in that list. And then there's going to be some similar names in that list. And you are supposed to click the one that pertains to your business. So that way, you're identifying your business to be unique from all the others that's in that list. Confirm that the information is correct. Enter entity start year and the state of incorporation, if it's applicable. You do not have to be incorporated to obtain a UEI, and then select Receive UEI. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about registering your business. Now that you have that UEI number, you will need your company information, your NAICS codes, certification and qualifications, and do not forget to self-certify as a SDB. CAGE code is automatic. Remember that. Also, keep in mind when you're doing this registration, it could be time consuming if you don't have all your documents ready. And if you want to do it over time, you can save it. However, keep in mind, if you don't finish it in 30 days, it will be erased. So you will lose everything that you've already done. So if you feel like that may happen, take screenshots because that'll make it easier if you have to do it again to just simply look at what your other answers were when you applied originally. So just keep that in mind. You have that 30-day limitation. Next slide, please. So the federal certifications that we're going to talk about: the small disadvantaged business, veteran-owned small business, the service-disabled veteran-owned small business, woman-owned small business, and economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business, 8A business development program, as well as the Hub Zone program. Next slide, please. So let's start first with the small disadvantaged business. What are the eligibility requirements? You must be at least 51% owned and controlled by one or more individuals who are both socially and economically disadvantaged. And that could be based on race, ethnicity, or cultural bias. Meet the Small Business Administration size standards for their industry. So that link there is a little long, but you can also Google small business size standards and that tool will come up. Average income over the past 3 years does not exceed $350,000. Net worth less than $750,000. So I want to go back to the average income because how it's described with the state of California is different with the federal. So I don't want you to think that this is an aggregate of 3 years. It means that over the past 3 years in any given year, you did not exceed 350,000, not collectively 350,000. So your net worth must be less than 750,000. And you must not own assets more than $6 million. Oh, and that net worth does not include the home in which you live in. So keep that in mind as well. So, what are some of the benefits of the SDB? You can self certify as part of your registration with SAM. You can receive preference only when competing for prime contracts within the 8A program. Federal 5% goal, and federal agency and primes are seeking SDBs to meet the 5% goal. And we talked about that on the state side. So they pass along that responsibility to the primes when they're submitting their proposal. If they're not themselves, their business is not an SDB, then they must have a subcontractor that represents 5% or more of its bid proposal. Okay, next slide, please. VOSB, Veteran-Owned Small Business. So the eligibility requirements: be identified by the Department of Veteran Affairs as a veteran. And I think I saw a question pop up on this, so that you can use your DD 214 in this instance. If you do not have that, you can order that. It takes about 3 weeks to obtain. Have no less than 51% of the business owned and controlled by one or more veterans. Be considered a small business as defined by SBA size standard and registered as small business and SAM. Demonstrate veterans as actively involved in the day-to-day operations. So what are some of the benefits? Certified VOSBs may compete for sole source and set aside contracts with the VA. Now, mind you, this is specific to the VA. All federal government purchases between 10K to 250K are automatically set aside for small businesses. Now, let me keep the set asides and the sole source that mentioned in the first bullet, and that's with the VA. That does not mean that you can't contract with other agencies within the federal government. It's just that this particular benefit is given only through the VA. Okay, so all federal government purchases between 10K to 250K are automatically set aside for small businesses. Two small businesses can offer the product or service at a fair and reasonable price. So what that means is they don't have to go public with the opportunity, but they can contact two small certified VOSB businesses and ask them to give them a reasonable price for services and then award the contract to the winning bidder. The VA set aside a minimum of 7% of its annual contracting dollars for VOSBs. VOSBs can also compete for contracts under other qualifying socioeconomic programs. Next slide, please. So what are the eligibility requirements for the SDVOSB? So this one, the difference between the first one we discussed, which is simply a veteran-owned, this one is service-disabled veteran-owned. You must have a service-connected disability, recognized by the VA. So the VA is the one that issue your disability rating. You have no less than 51% of the business owned and controlled by one or more service-connected disabled veterans. Be considered a small business as defined by the SBA size standard and registered as small in sam.gov. So you see the theme there with the small business. Demonstrate veterans are actively involved in the day-to-day operations. So what are the benefits? Certified SDVOSBs may compete for sole source and set aside contracts with the VA. So you see they have that in common with the VOSBs as well. All federal government purchases between 10K to 250K are automatically set aside for small businesses. And again, just as I said before, you can compete with just two businesses, yourself and another business, as far as giving a reasonable price and receiving award of a contract. VA set asides a minimum of 7% of its annual contracting dollars with SDVOSBs. SDVOBs can also compete for contracts under other qualifying socioeconomic programs, like the 888 programs and other programs that's based on socioeconomic status. I'm waiting for a pop-up to go down. Okay. The federal government must spend 5% of its annual procurement dollars with SDVOSBs. Next slide, please. Woman-owned small business. You must be a small business according to the small business size standards, be at least 51% owned and controlled by women who are U.S. citizens. Have women manage day-to-day operations who also make long-term decisions. The SBA maintains a list of those eligible industries and NAICS codes. So the WOSB certification is limited to a certain NAICS codes. So to find out which NAICS codes those are, just go to this utilize this link to find out if your business falls under those NAICS codes. So what are the benefits? Help to level the playing field for women business owners. The government limits competition for certain contracts to WOSB businesses that participate in the WOSB federal contract program, which also are set-asides. These contracts are for goods and services in specific NAICS codes where WOSBs are underrepresented. So like construction and construction has a lot of NAICS codes, but there are construction NAICS codes that could qualify you for the WOSB as well as other industries. 5% of federal annual procurement dollars, and provided they are eligible, WOSB certified firms can still compete for contract awards under other socioeconomic programs. Next slide, please. Economically disadvantaged woman-owned small business. So the eligibility requirements is be a small business according to the SBA. And then, of course, the 51% again, controlled by women who are U.S. citizens. Have women manage the day-to-day operations who also make long-term decisions. Be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with a personal net worth less than $850,000. And again, this does not include the home in which you domiciled in. Be owned and controlled by one or more women, each with 400,000 or less in adjusted gross income average over the previous 3 years. Be owned and controlled by one or more women, each 6.5 million or less in personal assets. SBA again maintains a list of those eligible industries and NAICS codes. So, what are the benefits of having this certification? So it can help to level the playing field for women business owners. The government limits competition for certain contracts to WOSB's businesses that participate in the WOSB federal contract program, such as set-asides. So the reason why this is important is because this certification is specifically for women that are underrepresented in certain industries. And so the whole push is to help women in these industries to be able to compete in that marketplace because it makes it more difficult when there aren't many women in those particular industries. So it helps to level that playing field. Also, those contracts are for goods and services and particular NAICS codes. I think I might have said that one already, where women are underrepresented. Some contracts are restricted further to EDWOSBs. 5% of federal annual procurement dollars must be spent with EDWOSBs. Provided they are eligible, WOSB certified firms can still compete for contract awards other than socioeconomic programs, including the 8A and the Hub Zone, which we will talk about soon. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the 8A Business Development Program. It's a federal contracting and training program for experienced small business owners who are socially and economically disadvantaged. So, if you do not have experience and this is a new business, we do not recommend that you apply for the 8A Business Development Program. It is a 9-year program. The first 4 years is considered the development stage, building the business capacity through training, mentoring, and securing government contracts, specifically set-asides for 8A firms, allowing them to gain experience and grow operations. In the last 5 years is the transitional stage where the program prepares the business to compete in the open marketplace while reducing their reliance on the program. You must remain compliant throughout the program, and individuals may participate once in a lifetime. So it's very important that you make sure that your business is ready for this program, because if you get in the program and for some reason you have to leave the program, you cannot reapply. It's only a one-time thing. And one of the big things, that mistake that people make that makes them have to get out of the program, is they don't have a lot of experience or they don't have enough capital. So if the program is assisting you to get these contracts, and for instance, you can't support paying your business operational costs plus the cost of doing the actual contract on a monthly basis while waiting to get paid, because remember those pay cycles. If you can't financially cover all of that, that may get you removed from the program. And you don't want that to happen, because this is a great opportunity. So make sure you are prepared for these opportunities. Next slide, please. So the eligibility requirements. You must be a small business, not have previously participated in the 8A program, be at least 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens who are socially and economically disadvantaged, have a personal net worth of not more than $850,000, adjusted gross income of 400,000 or less, and assets totaling 6.5 million or less. And again, this does not include the home in which you reside in. Demonstrate good character and demonstrate the potential for success, such as having been in business for at least 2 years. Next slide, please. So let's talk about the benefits. You can efficiently compete and receive set-aside and sole source contracts, receive one-on-one business development assistance for their 9-year term from dedicated business opportunity specialists focused on helping firms grow and accomplish their business objectives. Pursue opportunity for mentorship from experienced and technically capable firms through the SBA Mentor Protege Program. Connect with procurement and compliance experts who understand regulations in the context of business growth, finance, and government contracting. Pursue joint ventures with established businesses to increase capacity. So this is where small businesses that aren't financially ready get into trouble, because these joint ventures tend to be large contracts with a lot of financial outlay. So it doesn't mean you have to have the money, like physically have the money, but be loan ready, which means you can qualify for an SBA loan. Qualify to receive federal surplus property on a priority basis. Receive free training from SBA's Empower to Grow program. Lots of benefits there. Next slide, please. So now let's talk about the Hub Zone program. This program, I've watched this program grow over the past 10 years. The Hub Zone program fuels small business growth in historically underutilized business zones with the goal of awarding at least 3% of the federal contract dollars to Hub Zone certified companies each year. So the Hub Zone program, like 10 years ago, it was based by county, or maybe it was a little more than 10 years ago, which means the whole county had to be under just disenfranchised. And that's hard. That's very difficult because you're going to have some more affluent areas in a county as well as some disadvantaged areas. And then it grew where it was by zip code. And now they can do this by city blocks. And you could have across the street, the next block be a hub zone, but when you come back across the street, it is not a hub zone. So that makes the program very interesting, but it also makes sure that the disadvantaged areas are included and they're isolated as far as this program is concerned. Next slide, please. So what are the eligibility requirements for the Hub Zone? Be a small business according to the SBA size standards, be at least 51% owned and controlled by U.S. citizens, a community development corporation, an agricultural cooperative, an Alaska Native corporation, a Native Hawaiian organization, or an Indian tribe. Have its principal office located in a hub zone. Now, this link here, you can click this link to see if your principal office is located in a hub zone. Have at least 35% of its employees living in a hub zone. So the whole purpose of this is if your business is in a hub zone, which is an economically deprived area, in order for your business in this program to bring a positive economic impact in those areas, then the employees, at least 35% of the employees, must also live in that area. Because if they live in that area, usually you spend your money in the area in which you work and live. So that brings a positive economic impact in those areas. And that's the whole purpose of the Hub Zone program. So you can find the full qualification criteria in Title 13, Part 126, Subpart B of the Code of Federal Regulations, CFR. So that was a mouthful, but you can find out more information in that link there. Next slide, please. So what are the benefits of the Hub Zone program? The government limits competition for certain contracts to businesses in historically underutilized business zones. It also gives preferential consideration to those businesses in full and open competition. So that means if you're not competing for a set aside, then you will get a preference to level that playing field when you are in open competition. Joining the Hub Zone program makes your business eligible to compete for the program's set aside contracts. But keep in mind that it doesn't mean you can inflate your prices because you are also competing with other businesses that also are in Hub Zones. HubZone certified businesses also get a 10% price evaluation preference in full and open contract competitions. That's huge. HubZone certified businesses can still compete for contract awards under other socioeconomic programs that they qualify for. Next slide, please. So, how to apply for the HubZone? So, confession, I meant to take this slide out. So the federal government has consolidated or centralized its government procurement application process. And we're going to talk about that in the next slide. Next slide, please. So it's centralized where you can limit, you can it's a new single application process. So you can apply for all of the certifications that you qualify for using one simple application as opposed to an application for each of the certifications that you're going after. So just go to certify.sba.gov. Now, this new process literally has gone live about a month ago. So it's a very new process. So there's still a couple of quirks. So please be patient as the SBA iron out those quirks. But the whole benefit of it is that you do not have to go and do an application for each of those certifications. And we can help and assist you with that as well. Next slide, please. So these are all of the certifications and programs that you can apply for in that centralized application process at certified.sba.gov. That's the SDB, the VOSB, the SDVOSB, the WOSB, EDWOSB, and then the 8A program, as well as the Hub Zone program. So you can get a lot done in one centralized location. Next slide, please. You're on mute.
Thank you so much. And we're on to our next section of questions. We have a lot of good questions. Please remember to enter them into the Q&A so I can ensure that they get answered for you. And we'll start by focusing on the federal certification and registration questions first. There are a couple that came through about California, and we'll get to those at the end just to keep it kind of separated. So first off, someone was wondering, they're already certified in SAM. They have their cage code, their TIN, and are registered with the SBA, but they're wondering what else they need to do to be able to do business with the state of California. How do those intermix?
Okay, so again, the state and the federal does not intermix in this case, only with the Caltrans DBE certification. So if you want to do business with the state of California, you have to go to caleprocure.ca.gov. As we stated earlier in the presentation, register your business and then also obtain, if you qualify, the SB certification and or the DVBE certifications. And then when you register, of course, you'll start getting those email notifications of opportunities that are available to you. And then also after this Q&A, I will talk to you about leveraging some of those certifications for marketing and things like that. So that's to come. But again, just remember, state is separate from federal.
Yeah. And you can kind of think of it this way. SAM is the federal registration. Cal eProcure is the state's version of that. So they're completely separate. They don't talk to each other. They're not intermingled in any way, shape, or form. So if you want to do business with both, you're going to have to register in both. If you want to do business with just California, you don't have to register in SAM.
And just remember, it depends on how old you are, because I don't think they make this reference anymore. But you know how they used to refer to the federal government as Uncle Sam. So just remember that Uncle Sam is federal. So that the only benefits is on the federal side with Uncle Sam.
It's funny you bring that up because I was brought onto the program a couple of years ago, and that's immediately what I thought of when I heard that the registration was sam.gov. I'm like, oh, it's Uncle Sam. And then someone else was wondering, does being certified as both a woman-owned and a small business offer advantages for both set-asides? Can you double count those certifications?
Well, okay, so in that instance, the SDB might have set aside specifically for SDBs. So then, of course, you can pivot and utilize your SDB in that instance. However, there's set asides for the WOSB. So you can pivot and utilize it for that purpose. And you might find set asides that are for both and you can utilize them. So just make sure you're maximizing obtaining the certifications in which your business qualifies for so that you can dip into each pot that you have a certification for. So you can basically optimize your opportunities.
Fantastic. And then Winifred was wondering, how would you recommend getting experience or like past performance to apply for, say, the A2A program? How would you recommend a business kind of start out and start gathering that past performance to really be successful in government contracting?
So when it says 2 years of experience, it doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have 2 years of government contracting experience, but be in business for a minimum of 2 years and make sure it's not a hobby 2 years. Because it's not going to translate the same as 2 years working full time and actually doing business full time with your company, as opposed to I'm going to do this every now and then or whenever something pops up. So you're not giving yourself an honest chance of being able to complete the entire 9 year process with the 8A program if you do that. So make sure you do have, suitable experience. And then you can also talk with your procurement specialist at Apex if you're undecided as to whether or not you think you have enough experience in that area.
Fantastic. And then there are a couple questions about California and their certifications and registrations. Holly was wondering if you can elaborate on that 5% preference and what that really means when they're deciding which bid to go with at the California state level.
So, first of all, let me just tell you how bids are awarded on the state side. So, there's a technical proposal as well as a cost proposal. In the past, it used to just be one proposal. And that made things cumbersome because the lowest bidder wins no matter what, whether you are qualified to do the work or not. And that costs the state a lot of money because they will have to cancel contracts, resubmit solicitations, and start the whole process all over again. So to abate that issue, they developed the technical proposal. The whole purpose of the technical proposal is to make sure that your business is qualified to do the work, to make sure that you understand the scope of work and you understand the problem that's brought forth in the solicitation, and you have good modalities and ideas and of methodologies, I mean, and ideas on how to solve the problem. So your business is rated on the technical side first. So within the solicitation, there's going to be a table or some type of rubric letting you know how your business is evaluated. So they're going to assess a certain number of points. And let's say if it's on a 100-point system, they might rate you, give you 20% might be based on your experience, 20% based on whether or not the proposal was responsive, meaning you completed all of the attachments, the documents that required your signature or just completion of some documents. And so they're going to rate you on that level. That's the technical side. And also part of that evaluation process, and let's say we're still using that 100-point system, they may have set some type of criteria where only businesses that score at least 90 points out of the 100 on the technical side advances to the cost side. So if your business does not score that minimum amount, they don't even open your cost proposal. It could be the cheapest cost, but you're not qualified to do the work. So it doesn't help them anyway. But if you do score at least 90% or the 90 points, now, mind you, that's just an example. There aren't all 90, but they have in their head what that number is for the minimum to advance. So let's say 5 of them advance to the cost. So they open the cost proposal for all 5. And then the lowest bidder of the qualified, because they call them qualified if they surpass the technical portion of the bid. So the lowest bidder, and they call it the lowest, what is it, lowest responsive bidder, they win that contract. So I'm not sure if that thoroughly answered the question because I got so into it. Can you reread the question to me, Amanda, so I can elaborate some more?
We're discussing what a 5% preference means when it comes to getting a solicitation.
Okay, so once they open those cost proposals, and that's where they're going to see, okay, this person has a certified small business certification, whereas the others may not. And that's another thing. You could be certified, but if you don't stipulate that you're certified in that proposal, they cannot apply that 5% to your benefit, and you cannot let them know after the fact. So, because that's due when the proposal is due. So they take the lowest bidding, the person that bid the lowest amount, they take 5% of what that represents. They subtract that amount from all of the certified small business bid price. And then the lowest bidder in that case wins. It still may not be the certified small business because that 5% taken from the lowest bidder may not have been enough to subtract from their bid to make them the lowest bidder. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah, that's perfect. And then I have someone else who is wondering, they have a small business certification as a sole proprietorship, and they're looking to add out-of-state contractors to their team. Would that affect their California small business certification with the whole domicile requirements?
Okay, so in this case, some businesses do have certifications and they acquire these contracts where they're not doing the work. In that case, yes, that will affect your contract and your certification because the purpose of the certification is for the state of California to help, to economically help its certified small businesses. And in this structure where the business the actual work is going to someone that's out of state, it's not accomplishing that goal. However, if only a portion of it is going to out of state contractors, you have to refer to the solicitation because sometimes the solicitation will outright say that this must be 100% of the work must be done by businesses domiciled in the state of California. So this is a case by case instance. It's not a cut and dry, oh, 20% can be outside of California. That is not the case. You have to defer to the solicitation.
Fantastic. And he did mention something about being able to pay those out-of-state contractors. I think that's a little bit too in depth for this conversation, but definitely connect with your local Apex Accelerator. And once you're connected with your counselor, they can help you really figure that out based on California regulations and the solicitations that you're going for. So it can be a little bit more nuanced, and a counselor can help you determine that.
Thank you.
Mhm. And then they were also wondering, they're just starting their business in California. And they're wondering if they have to be in business a certain amount of time or have a certain amount of past performance to apply for the federal certification. So WOSB or EDWOSB. Is there a past performance requirement for those?
No, there isn't. And the federal certifications, it does not, there's no restrictions on how long you've been in a particular state, as long as you're in the United States.
Awesome. And then there are quite a few questions, so I appreciate your patience as I sort through them. We will have one more Q&A section at the end. And so I am saving a couple of questions that are really good to kind of round out the presentation on for that Q&A. We have one that I think would be fantastic as we've been discussing past performance, but we haven't really discussed capital. And someone was wondering if there's a need for them to have the funds, have the resources to do the work before they get into contracting. Can you discuss maybe a little bit about what kind of funding they would need to be successful and how those payments are processed?
Okay, so again, this is a broad question because it's different with the state versus counties and federal and stuff of that nature. So I'm going to provide you with an example regarding to the state, but it's applicable for the federal. So remember, I was discussing the payment program, which means you get paid net 45. So once you submit a accurate invoice, you're getting paid within 45 days. You can get paid in 10 days, but always anticipate 45 days when it comes to financing so that you're prepared for that. So let's say you start a brand new contract on January 1st and you have two subcontractors. And your agreement with the subcontractors is that you're going to pay them net 30. So you submit your bid, you win. You start the contract on January 1st. You, in your business, you start working your subcontractors from January 1st. Forgot how many days are in January to the end of January. And you give your subcontractors, let's say 5 days to submit their invoices to you so that you can collectively develop your invoice. And just for making things round numbers, let's say once you get their information and you develop your invoice, you submit your first invoice on February 15th. So that means from February 15th all the way to, what does that mean? 45 days. That's the rest of February and all of March, pretty much, before you receive that first check. That first check, and that's only for the month of January. So that means that you would have had to outlaid all types of resources, resources being your operational expenses and the expenses necessary to do the work of that contract. So, and you're paying your subcontractors. So you did that for the month of January. You're also going to do that for the month of February. And you're also going to do that for the month of March. So for 3 months, you're going to do that before you receive that first check for January. So keep that in mind. So you have to be able to afford that contract. And that's part of the vetting process, which is kind of beyond this course. But when you do find a solicitation, make sure when you're vetting that solicitation that you do a cost analysis to find out what are going to be the costs of me to do this project and whether or not can I afford it. So those are the type of things that you need to ask yourself. And then if you cannot afford it, Are you loan ready? Again, these are things that are outside this course. So make sure you meet with your Apex so that you guys can work those numbers out.
Absolutely. And this is actually a fantastic moment to plug one of our other fantastic no-cost resource partners, the Small Business Development Center. We work quite closely with them in many aspects, and we work in a similar way of we handle government contracting. But if you are looking for help with funding, with capital, with setting up your business and registering with a state, that's where the Small Business Development Center or the SBDC really shines because at Apex, we can only help with government contracting. We can't help you find loans. We can't help you find any sort of capital. We can help with government contracting grants, of which there are about three of them, very niche about innovation, but we can't help with any other kind of grant or funding assistance. But the Small Business Development Center absolutely can. So if you are connected with your local Apex, we can refer you directly over to them, or you can connect with them from the link that I'll be dropping in chat here in a moment, and they'll be able to take you on. And again, absolutely no cost for their services too. So something I would highly recommend connecting with, especially if you're looking for that funding or that financial support or possibly some loans to keep you going. And then I did want to do one more question. We are looking good on time, but we had a really good question. Someone has, say, a WOSB application pending and processing in the SBA system. Can they continue bidding on open solicitations using that certification that's processing?
Unfortunately, you cannot. Until you are approved, you are not a certified WOSB or any other certification that you're going after until you receive the approval.
Fantastic. And I do see a couple of other questions coming in. Feel free to enter any questions into the Q&A section. We will have one more Q&A after this next section, but we will go ahead and move forward.
Great. So now we're going to talk about leveraging your business's registrations and certifications that will position your business for government contracting success. Let's move on. So connect with agencies. So in this case, I'm talking about the state of California. You can leverage upon your California's SB and DVBE certification to market your business to small business DVBE advocates. And remember, I mentioned that earlier on in this workshop. So the state of California has advocates that work for the state, and there's one that's represented by every state agency that spends a minimum of $100,000 in government contracting. And you can reach out to them to discuss what type of contracts are coming down the pike. You could tell them what type of work you do, and if they've ever had solicitations in those arenas, and if something is coming up in that arena. You can also market your business. Send them your capability statement and make sure you follow up. And you can also discuss with them spending thresholds. Every agency has a spending threshold. That means what is the dollar amount that they're able to spend and contract out for without going public? You can utilize your SB certification, your DVBE certification to stay under the radar, so to speak, and go after those spending thresholds. They're smaller dollar amounts, but still, that could be a viable way of still earning an income. Then you can also use the use it or lose it funds. What does that mean? So every state agency is given a budget at the beginning of their fiscal year. And it's best to use all of those funding dollars by the end of that fiscal year. Sometimes, if they don't utilize all the money, well, all the time, if they don't use the money, they have to send it back. But sometimes that might affect their budget in the coming year because they might the state might think they can't spend that amount of money, so they gave them too much and they might reduce their budget. So every agency is trying to spend down their dollars. So with the state of California fiscal year ending on June 30 of every year, you could utilize and contact the advocates, let's say in early March, to find out if they have any use it or lose it funds that they're trying to expend in the area in which you do business. And if they are, you can contract with them for money that is a contract that's under their spending threshold, because remember, they're in a rush. So you can find out, well, what can I do for you that's under your spending threshold, and get contracts that way. So you have to be very strategic in your marketing and utilize those advocates because they're there for you. And then you can also, as I just mentioned, talk to them about what type of opportunities are coming down the pike and ask them, ask them for marketing advice. If they don't have these opportunities that's available, are they aware of any other agency that does? So don't be shy. Reach out to your advocates. That's what they're there for. But please keep in mind that they actually have a job. Their job is not just to be an advocate. So just keep that in mind too, as far as their availability. And when you download that advocate directory, use it. If you download it, you can use it, but I would not recommend you using it for more than 3 months because advocates change a lot. So make sure you keep a fresh copy if you're downloading it and using it from the downloaded copy. Oh my gosh. Sorry about that. Um, Next slide, please. So this is also another way to connect with the state of California. So this is just a little excerpt of the advocate list. And I did the excerpt from the bottom just so you could see just how many advocates they have. So in this case, at this point, when we're doing this workshop, there's 277 advocates out there that's their whole aim is to help your small business to grow and thrive. And the ones that are highlighted in yellow, and there's quite a few when you pull down that list, the ones that's highlighted in yellow, they specifically go for small businesses, certified small businesses and DVBEs first before considering other businesses. So that's a great side note to know as well. And then those X's that you see in the third column, those are contracts. I mean, those are agencies that have construction type contracts as well. So they have these little codes in there to assist you. So utilize your list. And how I recommend that you use this list to better position yourself is to develop a targeted list of agencies that you want to pursue. I would never pursue more than 10 to 20 because what if opportunities come out that you can't handle, if there's too many. So use measured marketing, 10 to 20 agencies. If nothing comes from that, then develop another list of 10 to 20 to target. Send them your capability statement. Don't just send the capability statement and wait for the money to roll in or wait for them to contact you. It doesn't happen like that because they have a whole bunch of other certified small businesses and DVBEs that send in capability statements as well. And they might forget about you if you sent it 2 or 3 months ago. Reach out to them, stay in contact, follow up with a phone call, develop a relationship because you want them to think of you when that opportunity comes up that's within your NAICS code. Next solicitation. Next slide, please. Okay, so I kind of discussed this already. Knowing their spending thresholds. Well, how do you get to find that out? Is to contact your advocates. And each state is granted that purchasing authority, and they're in tiers. So I believe there's 4 tiers. Yes, tiers 1 through 4 displays purchasing authority dollar thresholds by goods and services category and acquisition methods. Non-accredited state agency purchasing authority information are available upon request. So keep in mind, these purchasing authorities, these tiers, they are very sporadic as far as their price ranges. It's huge variables. So for like for in my case, consulting, the spending threshold tends to be much lower. They tend to be, depending on the agency, from $10,000 to $25,000 in which they could spend without going public. However, on the areas of IT and construction, those spending thresholds could be six figures. So that's a huge, amount there. So if your business happens to be in those arenas, imagine that you could obtain figure contracts with little to no competition. Next slide, please. Okay, let's talk about those industry codes. How can you leverage upon your NAICS codes or your UNSPC codes to improve your opportunities with government contracting? And this is on the state and federal side. So what you could do. So let's say, for example, I'm going to use these UNSPSC codes, being construction site, haul away service, and a non-residential building construction service. And again, this applies, even though that this is state UNSPC codes, this applies with NAICS codes and on the federal side. So when you register your business, you are given an opportunity. There's when you're about to bid on a contract, you could, and I mentioned this, where you could advertise saying, I'm a sub or potential sub for an opportunity looking for a prime, or I'm a prime looking for a sub. So what you can do is you can advertise in those areas. And another thing that you can do for your NAICS codes, when you initially do your registration, you put in those UNSPC codes, as this is the type of business that I do. And I'm using the one that's on the slide here as an example. Also, put in a code that could potentially be a prime for the type of business that you do. For instance, a general contractor, even though you're not a general contractor, but put that in there. And the reason why I'm saying that is because now you're going to start receiving emails for general contracting work. How does that benefit you if you can't do it? Well, look at the scope of work. If the scope of work needs any of your NAICS codes or UNSPSC codes, now you can mark it. You can put in an ad saying, hey, I am looking for a prime and this is what I do. So you're marketing now to potential primes. And how did you know about that opportunity? Because you put in the NAICS code for the work that also encompasses what you do. So that's a good way to leverage the registration process. And it also opens the opportunity for you to get picked up as a subcontractor. You might get picked up to be a subcontractor in a proposal for 3 different primes, which increases your opportunity to get something. So that's a way to leverage upon your codes. The next slide, please. Connect with other government contractors. So I'm sorry that this pictorial here is a little blurry. That was the best. I did the snippet tool, and for some reason it came out dark. But I mentioned this before as far as the vendor ads. So when you're completing the vendor ad, this one is for state. Now, you can do vendor ads on the federal side as well. So when you're doing these ads, it has a response deadline. So let's say that it doesn't matter if you're a prime looking for a sub or a sub looking for a prime. But let's say you're a sub looking for a prime, and you're telling the prime that in the scope of work, let's say there's 10 things listed, and your expertise encompasses 3 of those things. And you tell them, oh, these are the 3 things that I can do for your business. And you put in the deadline in which they have to get back to you. Make sure that that deadline gives you enough time. If they reach out to you, it gives you enough time. If they say, okay, give me a proposal, gives you enough time to write that proposal, submit it to them, and still gives them enough time to incorporate your proposal into theirs before the due date for the solicitation. So be cognizant of that deadline when you're giving that. Also, in the description, make sure you place your certification and your certification name and your certification number in there first. That's letting them know that you can help them meet their goals. If they don't have that small business certification or that DVBE certification, you're the person, you're the sub for them. So make sure you use that as a highlight before you tell them all the things that you can do. So that's another way to leverage upon your certifications. And then the benefits of placing an ad is, like I said before, it broadens your opportunity. You might get picked up as a sub to be on their a proposal with several primes. So broaden your opportunities. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, so on the federal side, you may do something similarly also with SAM.gov. When you sign in on SAM.gov, click Contracting Opportunities. Click the results title. Verify if an interested vendors list, an IVL, has been established. If it has been, add yourself or your business to the IVL list. This is a public list, and this allows you to market to other entities. So primes or subs that are looking for someone for that particular solicitation or that contracting opportunities can go and access this IVL list and see your business. So this is another way to leverage yourself. If you have, again, if you have any federal certifications, because remember, Uncle Sam is federal. So they don't care if you have an SB or DVBE certification because that's state. So this is where you're going to highlight all of your federal certifications, because again, remember, they're trying to meet goals as well. So this is how you're helping them as a prime. And now you can leverage upon that to become a subcontractor with them. Next slide, please. So that is the end of this workshop, and I'm going to turn it back over to Amanda, and thank you all for attending.
Absolutely. And thank you so much for this great presentation. There's so many details and so much nuance between how they interplay and how they don't interplay. So if you do need any further assistance or are just looking to have someone in your corner as you tackle government contracting, please connect with NorCal APEX Accelerator or with your local APEX Accelerator. Remember, we are 96 centers strong across the US. So even if you are outside of our Northern California service area, there's absolutely an APEX Accelerator near you that can offer you the same great no-cost assistance. And I do want to let you guys know we have quite a few events, and I'll be getting some more events coming up on our calendar. One you all might be interested in is this I'm Certified Now What event. We'll be joined by California DGS representatives for one of their curated presentations on how to really utilize those certifications and registrations with the state. So that's going to be January 16th in the new year at 10 a.m. And the registration is on our calendar, but you'll also be getting these slides and recordings within a week of this event. So you'll be able to click that link as well. And now we do have a couple more questions. I'm seeing a lot of thank yous. We love those. But someone was wondering if they have done business with a US embassy that is outside of the US, would that count as past performance experience in government contracting? Are you familiar with this?
Actually, I had a cousin that was a U.S. ambassador at a U.S. embassy. Um, but as far as government contracting, that's still a government contract. If you were contracting with the U.S. embassy, it doesn't matter what soil it was on, it was U.S. contracts. So yes, you can use that as experience.
Fantastic. And then someone is also wondering if they are able to connect with a California agency advocate that really wants their service but doesn't have a solicitation for it. Have you heard of those advocates or that agency being able to develop a solicitation that has not previously been offered?
Well, Could you please repeat that? I was thinking it was going in a different direction, and now I want to make sure I have it correctly.
Yeah, if an advocate really wants the product or service that a business is offering, do they have the ability to create a solicitation for that business? Or does there have to be precedent in that solicitation or product or service?
Okay, so there's a couple of things that must happen here. So if it is under the spending threshold, they still must contact another, including your business, another two businesses, and ask them for their pricing for that same exact thing. So that way it's not them just solely contracting with you because it may not qualify for sole source justification. Sole source justification is a totally different thing. That is if there's no one else within the vicinity that can do the work or provide the work or within the time frame necessary for the work, then they can go ahead and contact one person to do the work. So that is a totally different beast and rules and regulations. But I hope that addresses the question. I'm not sure if that was it's everything that you were asking. If not, make sure you just augment your question and I'll answer it.
Yeah. And if you are looking for further assistance, a counselor can definitely sit down and really get into what your business does, how you can get into and connect with these advocates, and how you can really almost propose that they want to buy your product and convince them that they do. So that's really where our one-on-one counseling shines. And then we have two more questions to round out our event. We are almost at time, but these are very, very good questions. Kim seems to have had all of their proposals rejected and has recognized that it can be very difficult to really break into government contracting without having some sort of connection, some sort of network already within that. So, would you have any advice for Kim or anybody else on our presentation today on how they can really connect with and get into that network and become kind of a part of the government contracting community? What advice would you give them?
So in this case, it's difficult because we don't know why your proposal was rejected. Was it that it just didn't pass the technical portion? Or did it pass the technical portion and it just wasn't the lowest bidder of the responsive bidders? So that's something that you can meet with your procurement specialist to find out what was going wrong with your proposals. And it could have been that, the certifications, or you weren't responsive in the sense that you did not sign all of the paperwork. Sometimes they even have limitations on how many pages for the solicitations, only because they're trying to be timely with the awarding process. So if you missed anything, it could be for those reasons. And I just say just make sure you pay attention to the solicitation. I always read the solicitation 2 to 3 times using a highlighter, taking notes and things of that nature. And I put tabs on the pages because you don't want to forget something or miss something. And when you do have a question, you want to refer back to the solicitation, you want to be able to find it quickly. So that's the advice I would give you in the meantime, but I would say please meet with a procurement specialist to find out what is going on with those proposals.
Absolutely. And meeting with a procurement specialist can also help you make those connections. They can help you be aware of events where the buyers for the agency you're interested in selling to is going to be. And you can go ahead and introduce yourself, introduce your company to them, and that could be the connection. She also mentioned feeling a bit like it was the good old boys dynamic. And that can be possible, unfortunately, but it could also be that another company that submitted a solicitation at the same price had more past performance or had more past performance with their agency. So it can be a number of things, and a counselor can really help you fine tune and debrief after those solicitations come back. And then I think a great question to wrap us up today, Daria, what level of contracting would you recommend for beginners? We've covered state, we've covered federal, we've covered some local certifications. Where would you recommend folks start off?
So I usually recommend that people start off at the state level or your local governments, only because of the financial situation. The pay cycles are shorter than Net 45. And so that means less financial outlay and there's more affordability. However, it does not mean you should not go after a federal contract that you could afford. So you need to sit down and ask yourself, what can your business afford? What are you willing to do? Maybe start off in subcontracting. So that way you're not 100% responsible for a contract, because another thing you don't want to do is bite off more than you can chew. If you do not supply or meet the terms for a contract, they can cancel your contract and put your business on a list to never contract with again. Or they can do it for a certain amount of time. And minimally, usually that's at least 1 year. So you don't want to develop that reputation for not completing contracts. So that's something that you can talk again with your procurement specialist, because after meeting with you and talking with you about your business and what capabilities you have, they can help you determine what type of contracts you should be going after as far as what agencies on the state or federal side.
Absolutely. And with that, we'll go ahead and wrap up. Thank you all so much for joining us. And Indira, thank you so much for the great presentation.
Thank you all, and I hope you have a great day.
Yeah, and as you exit the webinar, you will be redirected to our feedback survey. If you have a brief moment, we always appreciate your feedback, both positive and negative, because we truly do these events for you. So if we could be doing them better for you, the only way that we're going to know is if you tell us. Just please be kind, as always. But on the flip side, if you think that this presentation was awesome, had all the details you wanted, and you feel really prepared and really connected with your resources, we would love to hear that as well. We love to know when we're doing a good job so we can continue to do so. So your feedback is invaluable. If you have a moment, we would really appreciate that. And with that, I hope all of you have a fantastic rest of your day.
Are we alone?